There it is.
Hey.
Welcome to the show. Garret, the famous Garret. Is it Andritz? Do we pronounce every word in every letter in that? Andritz.
You nailed it.
All right.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
So Garret, this is of the Garret and Steve YouTube channel, right?
Correct. Yeah. We started our YouTube channel a few weeks ago after we got let go from Compound Media.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to do the whole story. Like this is, I first became aware of the entire Garret situation, and I guess Garret is more famous than Steve because I was very aware of Garret, but then I wasn't as aware of Steve. But after Compound Media, did you say it went out of business or did it merge? What happened?
It supposedly merged with Censored TV, the program that Gavin McInnes, I don't know if he owns or runs or he's on it, but they merged, but they ended up only taking Anthony's show. Like no one else from Compound went over there or anything. So it was really just they signed Anthony away and Anthony got rid of Compound Media.
Okay, so essentially you could call it a merger or you could call it Compound went under and it happened very suddenly. But what I saw online was a lot of people saying, you guys are crazy. Garrett's the funniest dude over there. Garret this and Garret that. And I was like, who's this Garret guy? And to be honest, there was a lot of Garret and Steve as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the name Garret stuck in my head. And so I was talking to Andrea and I was like, what's up with this Garret guy? And why does he have rabid fans, And she said, oh, Garret, let's do a podcast with Garret. So essentially that's where it all came from. But wait a minute, when Compound went down, I was just basically, I'm getting all my news from X, right?
Uh-huh.
And I thought it was Gino and who are we talking
Chrissy
about?
Mayer.
Chrissy, Gino, and Anthony. But you're saying it was just Anthony?
Yeah, they offered deals to Chrissy and Gino, and I'm not sure what happened, but their shows aren't on that website. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, I'm assuming Gino and Chrissy decided they could do better on their own, and then they said no, thank you, right?
I would assume that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if they had, let's take you, right? Let's go to the beginning, how you got to Compound Media. Because I heard the podcast I heard was with Michael Malice, all right?
Okay.
That was, a couple days ago you did that one?
Yeah, last Wednesday.
Okay. So I kind of got the story from that, but we're going to kind of go over elements of that as well.
Sure.
But you kind of described yourself as being, I think at one point you said, I almost was like living my retirement early. You kind of had your dream job.
Yes.
So what were you? Were you an audio guy? Were you an engineer? What was your background?
I started out as an intern for Opie and Anthony in 1999. And the guy like above me was called Spaz. He didn't want to be called Spaz anymore and wrote some like resignation letter. And they were like, all right, see you later. And they just gave me his job. So I worked for them from 99 to 2002, just like screening calls and doing like producing stuff on radio type of stuff.
And were you employed then by Sirius XM or what?
No, that was when they were on WNEW.
Okay. So that's probably a better contract. You were getting, it was a good job then, essentially.
Yeah, it was a good, it was like I was fresh out of I dropped out of college because they offered me this job. So I was like right out of college. And they're this growing radio show, like that's being compared to Howard Stern and stuff. So I didn't get paid that much, but it was an awesome experience. And I thought like, oh, once they keep going, I'll get paid down the line. And then they did this thing called Sex for Sam, where they had like groups of couples go around the city, like a scavenger hunt kind of, but they have to have sex in public and they get points for these things. And like I would be one of the spotters and you'd call into the show and say they're doing it, blah, blah, blah. And a couple had sex in St. Patrick's Cathedral and
That's not good.
They're not good. And they got called out and they were told to leave, but like they wanted to make it like their Opie and Anthony moment. So they kind of refused and blah, 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 then got arrested and went to jail. And the whole show got tanked because of that.
Wait a minute. You're saying the Opie and Anthony show was canceled because of that?
Yeah.
I didn't even know any of that. I mean, I knew Opie and Anthony were on the radio, and then all of a sudden they were on, it was like for a while they were on commercial radio and then Sirius as well, right?
Yeah, so they were on commercial radio until 2002 when they got fired. Then they had just signed a 3-year deal like 2 months earlier or something like that. So the CBS radio, who owned them at the time, was like, you're not allowed to be on the air and we'll just pay you for 3 years. And then once that 3 years was up, that's when they went to XM.
That's right. I mean, Anthony was putting money in the bank for not being on the air, right? They just had to live out his contract.
Exactly. Yeah. He was like flying model helicopters around and stuff, just doing fun stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So then where are we now? 2002, you're working at Sirius XM.
So they get fired. Like about a year later, I get hired at Sirius. And then after that, they get hired at XM.
Yep.
So they figured I had a job at Sirius and didn't bring me over to XM. They do a whole 10 years at XM or whatever, and then XM and Sirius merge.
Yeah.
And they start being in the Sirius building again. I would drop by and see them and say hi and stuff like that.
Yeah. So you used your experience with them to get the job at Sirius. What did you do when you were at Sirius?
So yeah, the program director with the station when Opie and Anthony got fired, he got a job at Sirius and kind of said, "Oh, send your resume in, blah blah blah." And then I just got a job running sports games, like at night. He would just sit there at a desk and run the feed and maybe add a few commercials or something like that. But then I got hired to work. I'm not sure if you would know Lynn Samuels.
Yep.
Yeah, she's like a lefty political radio talk show host. I started working for her show on the weekends. Then they made that her show like 5 days a week during the week. And then Alex Bennett, another left-wing radio guy from California. I started working both of their shows. And then I worked for their shows for like 4 or 5 years. Lynn Samuels passed away and stuff. And then I started working for Jay Thomas.
Oh, yeah.
The actor. Yeah.
And so you now have experience as what? You can run a board, you can do audio. I mean, you're an all-around radio guy?
I guess so. Like, that's the thing. Like, I always have this like imposter syndrome because I kind of just like fell into this job and I didn't go to school for this. No one really trained me or anything. But yeah, like I can run the audio board and turn on microphones or look up things the hosts are looking for and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's general producer, duties. And then you go to Compound Media. Is that right?
Yeah. So then Anthony gets fired he got attacked on the street by a woman and he made some tweets and Sirius didn't like the tweets. So he got fired from Sirius and he started up Compound Media. And about a month or two into that, I just emailed this guy, Keith the Cop, who was Anthony's friend that was running the business with him. I was like, hey, if you're looking for a job, a producer or something, I'd love to join you guys. And they were gung-ho about it. And like the next day, we're like, yeah, come in. And so I like took a sick day from work and came in and did the show and got hired like the next week.
Yeah. So at Compound, could you were you doing as well as at, could they pay you this, comparable to Sirius XM?
Oh yeah, they paid me more than Sirius XM.
They did.
Yeah. Sirius XM. I was there for 10 years, and I don't think I got one raise the whole time.
Oh.
They were. Yeah. So I don't know if you work for them or anything. So I don't know.
No.
I don't want to say anything bad.
No, I've been on all these shows. I used to go into Sirius XM all the time to do shows. And. I was always amazed at how much was going on there, but I'm always amazed at everything. I mean, I'm over at the Tonight Show. I'm at Fox News. I used to work on the Daily Show. So I've worked in cable. And even those days, when people look at the Daily Show, like the Daily Show is essentially a low budget show in terms of like television, Cable, in the 90s, we were all working on like VH1, MTV, Comedy Central. I mean, no budgets at all to speak of. You know?
I always heard that about MTV. That always like the
Yeah.
budgets. Yeah,
Ridiculous. So, but then you would go do, you'd be over at NBC either, auditioning for a sitcom, or you'd get doing a sketch on Conan or something like that, and you couldn't believe the budget. I mean, the difference, the day and night between cable and broadcast. Now that's changed a little bit. The budgets increased at cable and they shrunk a little at networks. But yeah, I've been all over the place in these things. So it's amazing to me when people can offer a contract to somebody. And so that's, in the early days, at least, Compound was hitting it with the subscribers. They were doing advertisements. They were, I think, renting out their space, because I think I would go down a Compound, and then other people like Steven Crowder would be using Anthony's studio. Am I right?
I don't know about Steven Crowder specifically, but yeah, like we had at most like 10 shows on the network at the time on Anthony's, and then we would rent out the studio to shows no one would really know. But it was active. Yeah.
So then you go through COVID, you go through Kumia's health problems, because Kumi's off the air for a long time, and you start filling in. And then you got basically Garret and Steve, which are, they know you anyway, because you're half the time you're on the show anyway. You got your own personality, but now you and Steve are doing the show, right?
Yeah. So we started, Anthony had a heart attack, like, I don't know, September last year or something. And they tried to get fill-in hosts for him, and they got a bunch of fill-in hosts, but he was out for months and months, and it was eventually like they started running out of people. So after like the first month or so, they asked Steve and I to fill in for him. And I had my own show on Compound, which was just me and the other co-hosts, and then Steve had a show on Compound too. So we were like, oh yeah, let's just do it together, and we did it, and the fans seemed to really like it.
Yeah. Do you know about, because I don't know what parts of the business end you were working on Compound, but what, I think I asked Anthony this one time, and he was basically, he said, he kind of gave me a straight answer, because he's pretty open about everything. He doesn't care, he's like, he's rich. He's like, he doesn't need to do any of this, but he basically was like, I said, how did you make money? And he was like, subscriptions were actually the smaller part of it. And, whatever ads he could do, was the bulk of it. Were you privy to the economics of the whole place?
Not really. They kept it under wraps a lot. Like, I never really knew how many subscribers we had or anything like that. Like, I heard in the beginning, it was like 40,000 subscribers.
Yeah. So that's huge. That's 40,000. And what is it? $6 a month?
Yeah. It was like $7 or $8 a month at the time.
Yeah. So all you got to do is do the math there. That is a massive nut monthly coming in, right? But what would you say when on the way out the door, what would be your estimate?
We've had some guesses, but like there were a bunch of payment problem things where we switched a provider, and then everyone got stopped with renewing their subscriptions. They had to re-up again. So people that weren't really paying for it or watching it, we lost them. And then there was like a PayPal. Huge.
Now, why did that happen? Was that like, is it because Anthony doesn't care about money and like he just like lets these things go?
I don't think it's that. I just think it was like, oh, we're maybe losing a little subscribers. Let's switch to a payment plan that's not costing as a much percentage as this other one. And no one really knows this. No one has been in this business. Podcasting was still kind of new in 2014 when it started, and there wasn't like big networks and stuff. So people just took chances and were like, let's go to this company and see what happens, and not foreseeing future problems.
Yeah. Well, I know that if you subscribe to something, basically they don't let you go ever until you cause a huge fuss. I subscribe to the New York Times, and it's only because they won't stop billing me, and then I've tried to cancel, but then they offer me they lower my rate. Yeah. And, the sales guy is so high pressure. I'm like, all right, what do you got? $4? I'll do it, because, I might as well, read the Times. You know?
They just care about the actual subscriber number, so they can use that to sell ads and things like that.
Yeah. So I would assume that it was the, if you losing subscribers, it was probably huge. The number of people, if you change providers and you can't do that billing thing, then you got to essentially make the sale one more time. You got to get someone to re-sign up.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the rumor I heard was they figured they lost like $1.4 million because of that.
Yeah, I see. That's unbelievable. Okay. So at some point it gets, and Anthony doesn't, I'm not saying he doesn't care, but he's down in South or North Carolina. Where is he?
South
Carolina. He's got his own huge compound now. He has all his hobbies and he drives his race cars and everything like that, right? So he's not motivated. So eventually he's bleeding money essentially because he's paying to keep the lights on and it's costing him money, right?
Yeah. Okay. And he's paying, we had like 4 or 5 producers or behind the scenes people and stuff. And toward the end of it, we had 4 or 5 shows. So there was too many salaries and rent for the studio that we were barely using. So,
Okay. So then it comes down to it. And then it is announced. So what did Anthony did a deal with Gavin, but like you didn't know about it until when?
Until, the day that we got fired. Yeah. Really, we got a text message from Gavin saying big meeting today after the show because him and Anthony would do a show together on Wednesdays. And so we had heard rumors of the merger and things like that. So we were thinking, I guess they're going to tell us about the merger and see who's moving on and who's not. And then it was, we go to the meeting and he's just like, so basically you're all fired. And that was it.
So Gavin walked in and said, "You're basically all fired."
Yeah.
What was Gavin wearing? Did he have a suit on?
He liked to wear Hawaiian shirts for the show, so he had a Hawaiian shirt on, I believe.
I see. And okay, so I heard you talk about this on Michael Malice's podcast. So I did already get that end of the story. So essentially, I wanted to ask you while you're working for Cumia. You probably were thinking, when he had the heart attack, maybe afterwards, you were probably thinking like, someday this is going to end. Yeah. Did you ever sit down with Steve and say, okay, well, this is what we're going to do if this place goes under? Did you make a plan or did you think about it?
I personally thought about it, but didn't really make any plans. And like Steve and I, we were 25 episodes into our show. So we weren't like that, I don't know, planning ahead or anything like that. We were just trying to get our feet underneath us with the show. So I don't know. It was always on my mind, but it was kind of like, we don't know what's going to happen. So why worry about it? But I should have been planning other things.
Yeah. So Garret and Steve was on Compound and it was about 25 episodes in.
Yes.
And so then what was talk about that day, because I don't know this gal's name. She was kind of like, pleading with Gavin, like, hey, don't Garret and Steve, you can't lose Garret and Steve. Like she was kind of sticking up for you more than herself. Is that right?
100%. Yeah. She was Luby is her name. Mm-hmm. And she was sort of like a paid intern. She would do whatever she wanted to do. And she would work like 15 to 20 hours at Compound a week. But she answered all the customer service and she answered all the Twitter responses and stuff like that. And she just told Gavin, like, listen, all the emails I get say they love this one show, obviously besides Anthony's show, and all the Twitter responses, like, you're making a mistake getting rid of these guys. And he was just like, well, if they want to cut a deal with us, they could do their show on our network or whatever. But that was it, so. Yeah.
So then did you say to Steve, hey, let's make a proposal to censored? Because I'm assuming you guys I saw all the activity. This is why I got interested in your story. I saw all the people on Twitter being like, if it's no Garret, and I don't even know. I don't know if they were your Russian bots or whatever. It was all these people. No Garret and Steve, I'll never subscribe. I'll dump my subscription. Because I apparently the way that it went, essentially they stayed subscribed to Gavin, like when he took over, right?
Yeah. So that was the thing. Gavin offered us the deal that everyone else gets, where it's like, I think at first it was like 50-50, all the subscriptions you bring in, and there'll be like a promo code people click on, and you get a. But our thought was, all our fans are Anthony Cumia fans because they're subscribed to Compound, and that's what we were on. So they're already going to have a subscription to Compound, and they're subscribing for Anthony. We're not going to get any promo code things, or even if we do a little, like how we get more kind of things, we might as well just do it on our own.
Okay, so you immediately thought we can do it on our own.
Yeah, that day.
Campaign. Guys, you have to cancel your subscription to Gavin to show everyone the power of Garret and Steve. And then come back with the promo code. Did you think about doing that?
No, we just that day after the firing and Gavin left, my whole thought was, I don't want to be on that network, really, because of the promo code thing also, but it just seemed like a fresh start kind of thing.
Fresh start, yeah. So what's the way that you're doing it? How are you doing? How do you get their money?
So we have a Patreon that you can sign up for. We live stream every Monday through Thursday, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. or longer. We keep the Monday and Wednesday show up for free on our YouTube, but we put the Tuesday and Thursday show behind the Patreon after we stream it. Yeah. For people, and then we do like bonus episode or where we play video games against each other or watch a movie and comment on it and do other stuff for like bonus stuff for the upper tiers of our Patreon.
Oh yeah. So is Patreon easy to work with? Basically how does it work? Someone does Patreon, they put their money in, and is it a minimum they have to give you, or you have like tiers or whatever? Yeah,
there's tiers. You set the amount. I think the lowest can be $1, and you could also have free members that like see what you post but can't watch anything. But you set up the tiers, and then it's just billed monthly. And we have like the $5 tier, which is just regular, but then a $10 tier, which gets the bonus stuff. We have a $25 tier where you can be the booth boys. We were called the booth boys because we worked in the booth at Compound. So you get to be the booth boy for the booth boys, where you can send in your own production stuff, and we have to talk about the video or the story or something like that.
Oh yeah, I see.
And then we have, just for fun, $100 level. It's called the Garret and Steve Club, and we have a plaque behind us, like a Employee of the Month plaque, and we get your name engraved on the plaque. And we've got like 10 or 11 people subscribed to that right now.
Would you have done that, say back in the old days of O&A, would you have like paid $100 to be on the plaque? Were you that kind of guy?
No. Yeah, no.
So you just do it. I mean, like when you say just for fun, you're like, why not, right? Why not, have the top tier?
Yeah, there's some people that, like to give us money, and we're fine with it.
Yeah. So you got the Patreon, and then they can go on and watch. So how did they get unlocked on YouTube? Like, is it YouTube does a deal with Patreon where people can put in a code or something and then they see the stuff?
No, we just, you could take the video and unlist it on YouTube. So then people can't search for it.
Yep.
But then if they have the link that we post on our Patreon, then they can go and watch it on YouTube.
I see. Oh yeah. So it's a private link, and YouTube kind of facilitates that. Mm-hmm. I just went on to Garret and Steve on YouTube, and it's like, what is it? A couple thousand subscribers or something, 2.5 thousand. Yeah. Which seems like a lot, but that's not a lot. Like I have 2,500 on my YouTube, and nobody watches my YouTube. So it's really just, subscriptions means nothing unless you are out there. And now, obviously, you're doing it every day, so you have people coming back again and again. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure the views are higher per video, because the minute I went on and clicked your latest video, it started running an ad, which only does it if you get a certain amount. Am I right?
Honestly, I'm not even sure how YouTube places the ads. It might just be on any video, and if you don't have a YouTube Premiere subscription, you get ads.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So you're
yeah,
not seeing, you don't know what you're going to get from that. At some point,
yeah,
if you pass some threshold, you will get a percentage of that, but you haven't hit that yet.
yeah. Not that I know. I think the threshold for ad views is pretty high, where you actually see some substantial money from it.
Yeah.
But if we're doing videos 4 days a week, every day, and there's just say 1,000 people watch each video, 16,000 views. I don't know if that maybe gets you $20 or something. It can't be that much for the ads, but yeah.
What about how did Anthony get advertisers? And are you going to go after those advertisers? Do you have their phone numbers? Did you keep a Rolodex?
He had a bunch in the beginning, when he just got fired and people wanted to get on his show and get the word out or just support him from after leaving Sirius. But it was a struggle for him to keep ads too, just because of the content of the network and things like that. But he had Steven Singer, who was an Opie and Anthony supporter forever. He came on. We had this place called Deep Discount, which was like Amazon for DVDs and VHS and cassettes and stuff. It wasn't really a big seller or anything. And then, some betting sites here and there during the football season and things like that, but not he didn't have live reads most of his shows. Yeah, at least during the last 5 or 10 years. Yeah.
And live reads, that's where you can really charge, because you're basically charging the advertiser to do the thing. They sign a deal with you for this many, and that's really how you make good money, right?
I think that was like Anthony's pay. Pretty much was like any live read you do, like the subscriptions and whatever, the compound cover the cost to compound, and then whatever ads you can get, I'm guessing was like his pay too. Yeah. And we had like ads on the site that people didn't really like, but they were bringing in money too, so that helped them.
Yeah. So so you think it was a good decision? You go off on your own, and you're basically like, where are we now? We're at a week or two into your solo career?
Yeah, we got fired like June 28th or something like that. We had to work another week. So we were officially not employed July 4th. So we got our Independence Day on Independence Day.
But your overhead is way lower, right? I mean, I'm going by what I think I basically lose money podcasting, but my costs are almost nothing. I'm in my basement. I got a green screen. I'm going through StreamYard. You probably know what StreamYard is. And if anyone watching, that's what you always see me. I do StreamYard. Why? Because they're easy. Because they hold everything on their servers, and I can record a podcast. I can save it for later, and then I can pop it up, or I can do live. I can go to all the different, just from StreamYard. What platform do you use?
Yeah, we use StreamYard too.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about then, because I don't know what tier you're on, but I'm thinking I pay $50 a month or something, and it's basically my needs. You probably need a higher tier, right?
Steve picked the tier, so I'm not sure what tier we are. Yeah. But yeah, we don't have, like, if you're the lowest tier.
Why don't you know? Like, you were like, I want to know why didn't you know all those people who were saying Garret and Steve, I'm their fans, did you walk away with a mailing list? Like, let's hit up all these guys. Like, did you steal the list?
Nope. Yeah, no. I was kind of lost and didn't know what to do. And we just decided.
Where's the email list? Like, did they do MailChimp? Did they do Constant Contact? Who had the list?
I don't know.
Lola, who was this girl?
Luby, yeah.
Luby, did she have a list?
She might have had a list, but I feel like we even got rid of our mail client because we weren't sending out mass emails anymore. So I don't even know if we had a list anymore.
And okay, so when you leave an email client, like I had Constant Contact, I'm not very good at marketing, but if somebody sends me their email, I never release that. I have a list of emails that goes back 10 years, right? So how many do I have? Probably 1,000, but that's not big for a comedian. Most comedians have, I don't know what they have, but it's tons, right? Now they do social media. A lot of people don't care about email anymore, but even the like a list of all of the compound contacts. You never really got that.
Never. Yeah. Like I had my own list of just like guests and stuff that we would get their phone number and I'd write it down on a list just to have. And I have that list, but that's more just comedians and things like that.
Yeah. Well, you're going to use that, right? Because you're going to get guests.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So costs are low. Let's say you're at the $50 a month tier, right? So you got StreamYard. That's like almost nothing, because then that means 10 subscribers are going to pay for your StreamYard, right?
Yeah.
Then what else you got? Nothing. Doesn't look like you got Edith Head working on your wardrobe.
Yeah.
and your office there, right? So it's not like a pro studio. You're just doing it by the computer.
Yeah, we go to Steve's house and do it in his dining room, I guess, in front of kind of psychedelic wallpaper.
Yeah.
And the wallpaper has now even become a character on the show. Like people love hate it kind of thing. Yeah. So we don't have that many expenses. Like we had to buy some microphones in the beginning, and we bought like a PZX camera or some point zoom click or something like that. A camera, little webcam, but it could follow you around and you could set different positions.
Yep.
And yeah, nothing really else that we had to buy that Garret and Steve Club plaque and things like that. But yeah, not a lot of overhead.
And then is there even a Garret and Steve .com, or do you just use everybody else's?
Yeah, we just use like our Patreon is kind of the .com, I guess. And we have our Twitters. People seem to reach out on Twitter for us, or X.
Yeah. But what about Luby? What's she doing?
So yeah, that's a thing. That's the problem, where it's like we don't have any extra money to throw her to say, come on by and just hang out or whatever. But she's been, she was a guest on one of our Garret and Steve episodes at Steve's place. And then last week we did a show from, we call it Impound Studios. A former employee had a bunch of stuff from Compound and set it up in his place. And we did a show from there. So Luby came by and Gino Bisconti came by and a few other people. So we've seen Luby a few times, but I think she's just like looking for a job. I think she might be working at Gas Digital now, which is another podcast network.
Right. And if you guys grew to a place where you were, making a good living and you wanted to kick it up a notch, would you consider going to a Gas Digital or or one of these other places?
By working for podcast networks, it seems like the bigger you are, the least likely you need the network. It's usually like there'll be a little show on the network and it'll get popular or something will happen. Like we had this show, A Fair One, on Compound Network, and that was Tommy Pope and some other guy and Shane Gillis.
Mm-hmm.
And then Shane gets on Saturday Night Live and he doesn't need our network anymore. We can't pay him what we want, to keep him around. So it's like the more famous you get, the less you need a net. You need a network to get your name out there. But then once it's out there, it's better to go on your own.
Yeah. So you could conceivably, if you got to the point of where you're making money, then you would just try to expand. You would maybe bring in another show and say, hey, bring your listeners over to us, right?
Yeah. Or I think our first step would try to be like find a studio to rent, so we're not sitting across from Steve's wife in the bedroom yelling at night. How much does that help? It seems like that once you get into that studio, then you got your, that's big. Like a studio, it's not cheap, right? Yeah.
So, do you even need it is my question. Obviously, it's better. If you go into a studio, you can see the difference between for instance, Gavin's show. You go into that studio, it looks like you're on a show, like a cable show or something, right?
Yeah.
So it obviously is better, but is it really, is that what you're getting for your money, or is it the essentially it's the connection with your audience? And if they're going to follow you to Steve's dining room, then that's where that's where you make it work.
That's good for our audience, but like if someone is scrolling through YouTube and sees our podcast, if it looks professional or has like a great thumbnail or things like that, more people will click on it because of that, you know? So yeah, our fans will stay with us no matter what, but it's trying to figure out how to get more fans.
Yeah.
You know?
And it sounds like Kumia helped you out because I saw him tweeting, hey, go listen to Garret and Steve. These guys are great. Go subscribe. So you probably got a bunch of, you know, at least followers out of that, right?
Yeah. He's been great. And I have nothing bad to say about him. And he said, you know, while we were leaving, like anything you guys need to get me to promote or a recommendation or anything like that, you know, let me know. And he's been great with that.
Yeah. And then, but it sounded like on Michael's thing, you were like, listen, I used to be a fan of Gavin, but I don't like him anymore because he fired me. But I'm wondering if you would, like, if you think about Gavin, it sounds like would you have given you a job? Do you know how much you were making and how much you would have brought into Gavin's? Like, can you say, hey, Gavin, I would bring in 3,100 subscribers to your dumb channel, so you should pay me the following. You didn't have that plan laid out, did you?
No, I don't think I wouldn't have any numbers to back me up or anything like that, you know?
Yeah. So would you say Gavin was like, you know, it sounded like you almost didn't like his attitude because he fired people so fast?
That was, yeah. And it was more just like the callousness of it and just like how he kind of was just joking about it and didn't seem, you know, and this was like a 10-year thing that we all built up from the bottom kind of, you know, and it was just like, not even our boss is saying you're fired. It was, but
that sounds like an Anthony thing. Do you think Anthony is like, I can't deal with this. Like, I like these guys, so I'm just going to be like, I'm going to let the other mob boss kill him, you know?
Totally. Yeah, he's anti-confrontation at the utmost.
Isn't that funny? Anthony. Because he's
confrontational on the radio and stuff.
Yeah, well, he's like a shock jock, but really, when you know Anthony, he's not a shock. He's not shocking in real life.
No,
he's a regular dude, and he has kitty cats. You know, you know, like Gavin doesn't have kitty cats.
No, he has a dog, and he doesn't like it.
Yeah, exactly. So essentially, I'm trying to say, like, can you blame Gavin? I'm asking you all these questions. Like, I thought Garret would have had his his business plan in order, whatever. But it sounds like you didn't have it. So I almost don't blame Gavin after talking to you.
Oh, yeah, I don't blame him. And like Anthony was losing money and he was paying all these people. But and I don't even disagree with the decision, but just the way it was done. Yeah. And I saw like Gavin's business side. And it was just something I didn't want to be a part of, you know?
Well, you know what? You could probably, are you using this with your subscriber base? Obviously, they're all fired up. How many people do you think canceled their subscription because they were mad about the Garret and Steve situation?
I mean, I know of personally 3 people, like personal friends and stuff like that. So,
all right.
But my high guess would be 100. I don't know, you know? Yeah.
Well, listen, if you have people used to say this to me, like, I had a show that I used to do downtown in Manhattan. I wasn't getting going. I couldn't get a show on Comedy Central. I couldn't get a special. My half-hour special took me like a long time to get that going. I didn't get Letterman, But Dimitri Martin said to me, Shalou, 100 people come to see you at Moonwork. This show I used to do, Moonwork, and 250 people would come, but probably 100 of them were there to see me because I was that closer, And Dimitri said, if 100 people will get up off their butt and come to see you, he's like, that's all you need, because that means 1,000 people would, and then 10,000 and whatever. Like, that's what he used to always say. And I thought that was so smart. Like, in my neighborhood, 100 people would come to see me. So all I need is to find a way to get the Shalou showbiz out there. And then there could be 100 people in every city. And that's a comedy club, right? And then when you get 1,000 people in every city, then you're playing like a big comedy club, that kind of thing. So anyway, that's
what our plan too. Yeah, exactly. Like, over are the days where you need 1 million subscribers and, to go on YouTube or whatever. You just need like a core group of people. And now we're just trying to figure out how to expand that group, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the controversy might help. I feel like there's a little bit, to me, it's a little off-putting, but some people thrive on these kind of things. Like we'll say like Kevin Brennan, almost everybody, like let's go through everybody except Anthony in the compound world. It's like all they do is fight with each other. Am I right?
You're right. It's a lot of bickering and stream sniping other people and making fun of their show while you're watching your show and stuff like that. Yeah.
I mean, is it real? You saw it up close. I know Kevin Brennan. I've known him for years. He was one of my favorite stand-ups. I knew him before Neil. You know, Neil wasn't even like around at the beginning. It was Kevin Brennan. He was like, he did Letterman. He, you know,
Star Search.
Yeah. He was huge, right? Kevin Brennan, one of the funniest guys going. Okay. I used to have him on Red Eye, and he's cantankerous and he's not nice to people around him. But I always thought it was an act. But at this point, I don't know if it's an act because, like, is it an act?
He was always the nicest person to me at Compound Media. By far, like never once even got angry at a stupid thing or whatever. Yeah. Always, like if he said something on the show and he wanted it cut out or whatever, he'd throw me $40-$50 and I'd be like, Kevin, it's my job. No, just take it. One time I like gave him back the money. I hid it under his coffee cup and he came back and was like, no, here, take it.
Yeah.
So he was always super nice. And yeah, I never had, even when he had big fights with Compound and stuff like that, he would text nicely with me. So yeah. I never saw it. But and other people he hated.
MLC, Misery Loves Company. That's his show, right? So he's essentially, and he used to do that on Red Eye as well. He would like bristly with people. And it was funny. And so I thought, okay, this Kevin Brennan thing is a whole act. But, you know, now I see him online. All he does is yell about how, you know, Kumi is a hack or whatever. And I don't know if it's fake or not, but obviously that's his shtick. What about Pat Dixon? He and Gino, there was like a fight or something, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was a big to-do between their girlfriends. Like Pat disrespected Gino's girlfriend and Gino had Pat's ex-girlfriend or girlfriend at the time on his show to talk about Pat. So then Pat went into a bar and punched Gino in the face for doing that. So
which turned into a whole thing, like a legal situation.
A legal situation. And then Anthony had to fire Pat. And then Gavin hired Pat right after Anthony fired him. So
so it's all very interesting, but that I would classify as it had to be real, right? Because that wasn't it's not like professional wrestling. It was an actual fight.
Yeah. I would say Kevin Brennan's is more professional wrestling-ish, but that Pat and Gino thing was 100% real. And
So if Kevin comes on your show, is he going to yell at you like, "Shut up"? You know, you're an idiot. Don't say it's an act. Is he going to get mad at you for that?
No, I did his podcast last 2 Wednesdays ago or 2 Mondays or whatever, so 2 weeks ago, and he's like my biggest fan. So he's super nice to me. Yeah.
But he wouldn't like that, would he? Blowing his cover with you say it's an act? Because I think it's kind of an act, but I swear if he were on here, he would say, "Shut up, Shalou. I never liked you."
I mean, I don't think he's like covering it that much. I just think I've never seen him be that way off the air to people.
Yeah.
Unless he's trying to be funny.
Yeah.
You know?
That's why. Yeah, I agree with that. And that's why, and I would love having him on Red Eye. I think my producer at the time didn't get it. He was like, "I'm not sure about that guy," because he's always like, he's a bit of a wild card. But of course, it was 3 a.m, so I thought we could, we could deal with that whole kind of thing. So that's it. That's all my notes here. If you could, I guess, to wrap this up, if you had your druthers, now you're running around, it's in early days, but you are a performer now. You have your own show. You are name in the marquee. Okay. At one time, all you ever wanted to do was be a producer. You were like, somebody give me a job. I'm going to be in the wings. I'm going to bask in the glory of these other dudes. Okay.
Ride the coattails. Yeah.
Yes. And so there are guys who live and die on like Howard Stern, right? Like Artie Lang was like, "No, I want to be a sidekick. I don't want my own show. My dream," same with Jackie the Joke Man, was like all he wanted to be was a sidekick. Okay. Now you and Steve are doing it. If you had your druthers and somebody said, "I'm going to give you a good salary. Come be my producer. Keep your mouth shut in my booth. Which one would you rather do?
Ooh. And I can't keep doing Garret and Steve?
Well, yeah, I guess you could. You can never tell someone to stop, right?
I mean, maybe under radio contracts or something like that, possibly. But
yeah,
yeah,
but you'd be busy. It'd be hard to do Garret and Steve in a real way.
True.
If you had to show up at 30 Rock every day and and work for somebody else.
I think my answer would be like, I need 6 months to a year. I want to try to build the Garret and Steve thing, and then if it starts plateauing or bleeding subscribers or something, then maybe I would, but I really want to try to get this going. And that's more of a backup plan, I guess. Yeah. But there's not that many types of those jobs around anymore, too,
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no one paying radio producers, a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's not like you can just call Jay Thomas, right? Okay, so where do they go? They go to Patreon, whatever, or is it easy? Just if you type in Garret and Steve, are they going to find you? Yeah,
if you go to patreon.com/Garret and Steve, or just on Patreon, you search for Garret and Steve, it'll pop right up. And our YouTube channel is youtube.com/Garret and Steve Show.
Garret, and the word "and," that's not an ampersand, it's "and," Garret and Steve Show. Yep. And what about the other ones? Do you do Rumble? Do you do all the other things?
We haven't jumped into there yet.
But Rumble's as easy as it can be. All you got to do is pop it into StreamYard, and then even if there's only 5 people watching, you might as well do it, right?
Yeah, that's the things we haven't figured out yet. Like, is it better to do that and have it on Rumble too, or is it easier just to keep it all in one place so we can keep track of everything? I don't know. But yeah, you're right. It's like good to have a Rumble channel in case something happens to our YouTube channel and it gets shut down. Or
absolutely. I mean, that alone, Rumble is non-censorship. YouTube, they're going to kill you because even if you get to the point where you're getting enough views on YouTube, I don't want to, dirty up YouTube here but everybody knows they don't certain things. I mean, even if you show a dead body on your YouTube channel, just showing a news clip that has they'll take your video down. So it's very, it's highly censored. So if you have some very special episode and something controversial happens, you can say on YouTube, hey guys, just so you know, the last episode, if you want to watch it, it's over on our Rumble channel.
Yeah. And how are they with censorship over there? Like,
that's the whole deal. They're nothing. Rumble. I have never heard of anybody getting taken down off of Rumble. Never.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. And what about like music copyright and stuff like that? Do you know?
Well, Rumble's easier to deal with than YouTube. If you put anything on there. I popped the Bob Newhart theme into my show one time, and they gave me a warning, and forget about commercial music. So if you follow the rules, YouTube is okay. But something tells me you and Steve are not going to follow the rules all the time.
Well, that's why we have our bonus channel where the videos that can't be on YouTube.
Exactly.
So. Well, thanks for having me on, Tom.
Oh yeah. Well, let's keep in touch. All right.
Will do.